She stood right in the middle of the dirt road, snapping her fingers at my workers like she was some queen, yelling, "Drag the vineyard owner here now! He needs to answer to me!" My guys froze, glancing at each other, because they knew something Karen didn't. This wasn't her neighborhood street. This was my land. Still, she barked orders, accusing them of blocking her community road with grape barrels. I walked up slowly, wiping my hands on a rag, and asked, "You sure you want the vineyard owner?" She turned on me with a smirk. "Yes, go fetch him. Tell him HOA rules forbid this nonsense." For a second, I just stared at her, trying not to laugh, because the truth she was about to learn would flip her world upside down. I leaned closer and said, "Karen, you're already talking to the vineyard owner." Her smirk cracked for a moment, then she burst out laughing like I'd told a joke. "You? No, you're just some worker. I know the real owner, and when I meet him, he'll understand I run this neighborhood." My workers started snickering under their breath, and that only made her angrier. She marched up, pointed a finger in my chest, and snapped, "Don't play games with me. I'll fine you, I'll tow this equipment, I'll shut this whole thing down." I tilted my head, keeping my voice calm. "Fine me? On whose land, exactly?" She scoffed. "This is HOA property, and I decide what's allowed." I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the county land map, and held it up inches from her face. "Look again, Karen. From this road to the river bend, all of it belongs to me." She blinked, the color draining from her face, but instead of backing down, she whispered, "That can't be true." She snatched the phone out of my hand, scrolling like crazy, hoping to find some mistake. But every line on that map showed the same thing: my family's name, stamped across the valley. I let her read it in silence until she hissed, No, you must have faked this." My workers couldn't hold it anymore. One of them chuckled, "Lady, he's the boss. Always has been." Her face turned red, and she snapped at him, "Shut up! You don't know anything." Then she spun back to me, desperate. "I'll call the board. I'll bid the sheriff. I'll have you removed from this property." That's when I smiled for the first time and said softly, "Karen, call whoever you want, but when they show up, they'll be standing on my driveway, not yours." For a moment she just froze, and then I saw it in her eyes. She wasn't planning to back down. She was planning her next move. The very next morning, I heard shouting outside. Karen had dragged a few HOA members down the road, waving papers in the air like she was holding the Declaration of Independence. "See, this proves he can't run a business here," she screamed. They looked uncomfortable, but she pushed them toward my gate anyway. I stepped out, coffee in hand, and asked, "You folks lost?" One of the men cleared his throat and said, "Karen claims you're violating HOA bylaws." I raised an eyebrow. "On my vineyard?" Karen slammed the papers against my chest. "Yes, no commercial activity is allowed in this neighborhood." I calmly handed the papers back. "Karen, this isn't neighborhood property. This is agricultural land. Your HOA rules stop at the end of that cul-de-sac." The men exchanged glances, clearly realizing they'd been dragged into a mess. But Karen wouldn't quit. She shouted, "I don't care what the deed says, I'll shut this down myself." And that's when my wife walked out behind me, holding something that made everyone go silent. In her hand was a thick leather folder, the kind officials use in court. Karen's voice cracked for a moment. "What's that?" My wife flipped it open, revealing decades-old contracts and permits stamped by the county itself. "These are operating rights granted to this vineyard long before your HOA even existed," she said calmly. Karen lunged forward trying to snatch the folder, but my wife snapped it shut and stepped back. One of the HOA men muttered, "She's right. This land isn't under our jurisdiction at all." She spun on him, screeching, "Don't you dare take his side! We can vote him out!" The poor man shook his head. "We can't vote out the landowner, Karen." I could see panic creeping into her eyes, but then
She tried one last desperate trick. She pulled out her phone and barked, "Fine, then I'll call the real cops. We'll see who they believe." She hit dial with shaky hands, certain she'd scare me into silence. What she didn't know, the sheriff who would answer, was someone I'd known my whole life.